It's time to build a default document using Finale or MuseScore or some such program like Sibelius. I'm going to be using Finale on a PC. This is a version of 2014.5 that has been updated to 2020. And so we can get started just by simply opening up Finale in this case, and then going to the setup wizard. Most notation programs have a setup wizard. We're just going to kind of click our way through, and to produce our default document, we're going to create a grand staff, and in this case we add it and then move forward through the next series of windows. I'm not going to worry about the score information because common time is fairly common. I'm going to select common time for my, again, default document I'm setting up, and then I'm just going to finish this here. It's going to set itself up the way that it wants to do this, but I'm going to let it, and I'm happy as a result. I like to make it a little bigger when I'm working on it. A couple of things I notice here. I see a lot of text I don't want in my default document. This might be stuff that I want to add later, but customize. So I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want it on my general default document. Also, I'm not particularly happy about this indent. That's great for piano music, but may not be appropriate for other situations. Again, it's one of those things I can customize later on. Now that I've gotten to this point and I've made some changes, I'm going to save this as a default document. Okay, this is a document. This is a document that I can refer to, and you can see I have another default document. So I don't have to go to the setup wizard anymore. I just open the default document, and then I can start working without having to make all of these changes. So I'll call this default document 2 because I already have another one. Now things become interesting, because as I begin to work with my default document, I may want to include customizable components of the default document, specifically components related to harmony. Okay, for example, if I have a piece of music that I'm going to be writing in 4-part harmony, I want to be mindful of stems up, stems down for soprano, alto, tenor, bass. That's where our layers come in. Okay? In most software notation programs, you have some way to control the way the stems go up and down. And for Finale, it's called layers. And those layers are indicated down in the lower left-hand corner. And they're controllable with various key commands, or you can simply point and click the buttons to change the layers. But layer 1 is stems up. Okay, so that means the soprano voice. Soprano voice as well as the tenor voice when we're in expanded position. So that means that I need to control stems up with layer 1 and perhaps stems down with layer 2. Now, if you go up and you look for it, and you'll be able to find where you can control how the program understands the uses of stems in some way. For Finale, that means layers. Okay, so I can change the layers. And the layers will be affected by how Chapter 1 applications apply. Okay, specifically application 5. When two melodies occupy the same staff, the stems for one melody up and the stems for one melody are down. If you remember that language, that's what it reads. So, what I'm going to do is freeze the stems up for layer 1, and then sometimes you have to deselect a box to make sure that that happens. In this case, apply adjustments only if layers are, or only if notes are in other layers. So what I'm going to do is apply that. That will allow me to adjust layer 2 at the same time without closing this box. So now layer 2 is down, layer 1 is up, and I'm simply going to remember that. Now I also have layers 3 and 4, but that's not going to be terribly important for this exercise. So if I compose a fairly simple, rudimentary voice leading example, I can see here that I have a simple cantus firmus, whereas we have maybe a 4-bar phrase. Now then, I have all these other measures to worry about, but we're not going to worry about them just yet. Instead, what I'm going to do is compose my soprano line, and my soprano line will be extraordinarily simple. Mi, re, do. Okay, and then maybe something like this. Okay, now the addition of figures. This is a major headache for a lot of music theory students. Let's clean up this score and get rid of all these other measures. I'm just going to kind of click a measure and, we can shift and click, and that will select all these measures, and we can hit delete, and that cleans it up pretty well. Getting the figured bass in the Roman numerals can be a little tricky. This is the next part of your default document experiment. I'm hitting Control Save right now because I always do that every couple of maneuvers. I'm going to select my chord tool and come up to my ribbon and take a look at the style of chords. Now what it defaults to is the standard chord. I'm going to change that to Roman. Something else I'm going to do, which is different from each software program, is load a library. This is a different way of understanding how the program will interpret different kinds of chord symbols. And for this library that I'm going to use is going to be specific to music theory applications. So I'm going to choose chord suffixes. And you have a lot of choices in here. The one that I'm looking for is figured bass. Okay, figured bass. This will allow me to put Arabic numerals on the score very easily. Okay, so I'm going to start with some Arabic numerals on this score. Now then, when I click the score, I'm going to get a chord definition dialog box. And all of these software programs have something similar to this. And in the chord definition dialog box, it asks you what the root of the chord is, what this suffix is, okay? We'll talk about that in a second, and then some of these other things that we'll talk about later. They're more advanced. Okay, right now what we need to understand is that the root is understood as a scale degree number, and the suffix is understood as a figure. For example, if the root is C and it's in first inversion, the suffix would be a 6. If the root is C and it's second inversion, the suffix would be a 6 and a 4. So if I just want to show the figure and I don't want to show the root, I can take that away and simply show what I want to see. And magically speaking, we can see that Finale will understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. In this case, I want another first inversion chord. In this case, I want a second inversion chord. So just by using the Arabic numerals, you can see how easy it is to import these symbols. Now, they're in the middle of the staff, which they didn't have to be. However, this is the way I chose to do it because I'm building some layers here. So I'm going to place those below, and you can see how they track. Okay, as I begin to add more notation to this, I might add the tenor line. Now, we have to be very careful about parallel octaves here because we have an octave. We have an octave. We might go back and begin to add the other voice just to kind of check in, make sure that we're careful about our voice leading. In this case, we prefer to double the soprano, but it's probably not going to work, and that wasn't an option because of the fact that we had an octave between the soprano. So in that case, we can default to our other option, which is to double something else that makes things easier. And we'll go back to our tenor line and add more tenor voices. Here we would like to double the bass. We'll double up our sopranos, or excuse me, our basses and tenors. And maybe we'll do it again. That looks like parallel unisons, but it's not because neither of the two voices move. That's kind of cool. Our stems didn't work out the way we wanted them to. So here we go. Other voice. And then sometimes when the root is scale degree 7 to scale degree 1 in the soprano, it's hard to do the doubling one would expect. And so for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compromise this just a little bit. Keep the common tone. And we have a complete chord. We just got to check for our doublings and our parallelisms. This looks pretty good. We're ready to add the Roman numerals now. Now that we have the library loaded, we can do that. So I'm going to come down here. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to keep the root. I'm going to add it. And then what happens is pretty cool. As I begin to add my chords in the middle here, well, it doesn't really matter where you add them. All you have to do is type in the root of the chord and then the inversion of the chord, and it will supply it. So this right here is a C chord in first inversion. Application. This is a D minor triad, so I'm going to use lowercase first inversion. And this right here is a C chord with the 6/4 applied. And this is a dominant chord in root position. And this is a tonic chord in root position. Now, sometimes your Roman numerals will be kind of above, but you can always collect them all up by selecting them all and dragging them and moving them to where you like them to be. And if you like them to be down here, then they're in a good spot. So generally speaking, once you have your library established, okay, once you have your library established, what you're going to want to do is save it. So I'm going to save my library. And so you go to Save Library, and then you do that. And usually with these software programs, you get a dialog box. And what you want to do with your dialog box is be sure that you select things that are important to you. So if you like a specific font, save that. Document options. Always save the document options because you went in and you changed settings on the stem directions. Always save the chord and fretboards, the page format, these kinds of things. And be sure that you save all of these things. Now, I already have a library, so I won't go to the next page, but when you go to the next page, it'll look like this, and you'll be able to save your library. Now, you're probably wondering, well, if the library is always there, why do I need to save my library? Well, the reason why is because not all of the chords that you're going to study are going to be in the library. So, for example, if I look at this chord here, and maybe I need a different suffix, I have to go and look for all these, look through all these suffixes to see if it actually, in fact, exists. And if it doesn't exist, then what I need to do is create it myself. And so there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can create it, and it will come up with a box where you can create your own. What I prefer to do is to find something similar to what it is that I'm attempting to create and alter that to look like a new suffix. So, for example, I would like to create a German augmented sixth chord. And these are very complex suffixes to create all of these. So what I'm going to do is select a suffix that I can alter into another suffix. So I see a 6 here. What I'm going to do is duplicate that and then edit it. And then when I edit the suffix, what I'm going to do is start to change the suffix. Now, sometimes when you change the suffix, you have to kind of move things around. And when you move things around, sometimes you have to change the font. Okay, and then you have to look at the suffix very carefully. And if you're not satisfied with it, then, continue to work on the editing process until you're satisfied with the way that it looks. So you're seeing how sometimes you can actually add in the vertical, horizontal, and that can actually really fine-tune the way that it looks. Now it looks like GR6. All right, now I just spent about the better part of a minute doing that. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to select that just for now. Okay, and you can see that it added that. Now, clearly that's not a German augmented sixth chord. However, because I made a change to the library, I'm going to now save my library because I added a customized symbol that is unique to my library. So my point is that as you make changes to your library, continue to save it so that you have a record of your changes. Otherwise, you'll have to reinvent the wheel every single time you start a new project. So, customizable libraries in Finale, that's how you do it. And if you do it this way, you'll always have a record of your work. And be sure to save your library on an external hard drive in a couple of different places or on a cloud to make sure that you don't lose it. I have more than 200 customized symbols, including articulations, dynamics, tempo markings that I use. And I couldn't imagine not having a customized Finale library as I'm working with composition. Good luck with your customizable library.